The concert at the Pontiac Silverdome in Michigan on December 31st, 1975, was supposed to be a celebration. Elvis was performing a New Year's Eve show for 20,000 screaming fans, and despite his declining health and increasing dependency on prescription medications, he had managed to deliver a solid performance. The crowd was ecstatic, on their feet cheering for an encore. Elvis, exhausted and disoriented from the pills he'd taken before the show, was making his way off stage when it happened. The stage lights were blinding, disorienting. Elvis misjudged the edge of the stage, lost his balance, and stumbled forward. He tried to catch himself, but his coordination was compromised. He fell off the stage, tumbling into the front row. Directly below where Elvis fell was 8-year-old Sarah Mitchell, sitting with her parents, so excited to see Elvis that she'd been screaming and waving throughout the entire show. Elvis's full weight, nearly 250 pounds, landed partially on top of her. The sound of her arm breaking was audible even over the crowd noise. Sarah's scream cut through everything. The concert at the Pontiac Silverdome in Michigan on December 31st, 1975, was supposed to be a celebration. Elvis was performing a New Year's Eve show for 20,000 screaming fans, and despite his declining health and increasing dependency on prescription medications, he'd managed to deliver a solid performance. The crowd was ecstatic, on their feet cheering for an encore. Elvis, exhausted and disoriented from the pills he'd taken before the show, was making his way off stage when it happened. The stage lights were blinding, disorienting. Elvis misjudged the edge of the stage, lost his balance, and stumbled forward. He tried to catch himself, but his coordination was compromised. He fell off the stage, tumbling into the front row. Directly below where Elvis fell was 8-year-old Sarah Mitchell, sitting with her parents, so excited to see Elvis that she'd been screaming and waving throughout the entire show. Elvis's full weight, nearly 250 pounds, landed partially on top of her. The sound of her arm breaking was audible even over the crowd noise. Sarah's scream cut through everything. At Detroit General Hospital, Elvis paced the emergency room waiting area while doctors examined Sarah, unable to sit still, unable to calm down. Her arm was broken in 2 places, requiring immediate surgery to set the bones properly and ensure they'd heal correctly. The Mitchells sat in shock, still trying to process that Elvis Presley was with them in this hospital waiting room, that their daughter was being operated on because of what should have been the best night of her life. "Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell," Elvis said, approaching them carefully, his hands shaking, "I want you to know that I'm paying for everything. All of Sarah's medical bills, whatever she needs, physical therapy, anything. And if there's anything else I can do, anything at all, please tell me. Please." "It was an accident," Tom Mitchell said, his voice steady despite everything. "These things happen. We don't blame you." "It shouldn't have happened," Elvis said, his voice breaking. "I should have been more careful. I should have been paying attention. I should have been sober. I should have been better than this." The admission hung in the air. Elvis was acknowledging, to these strangers, that he'd been impaired when he fell, that his prescription drug use had contributed to injuring their daughter. Linda Mitchell reached out and touched Elvis's hand. "You didn't mean to hurt her. We know that. Sarah knows that. She was so excited to see you tonight. This doesn't change how much she loves you." Elvis broke down completely, sobbing in the hospital waiting room. The guilt, the shame, the horror of having hurt a child who loved him, it was overwhelming. Sarah's surgery took 3 hours. When she came out, still groggy from anesthesia, her arm in a cast from shoulder to hand, Elvis was the first person she asked for. "Is Elvis here?" she mumbled. "Did he leave?" "I'm here, sweetheart," Elvis said, moving to her bedside. "I'm right here. I'm so sorry about your arm." Sarah, even through her pain and drug-induced haze, smiled. "It's okay. You didn't mean to. Can you sign my cast?" Elvis signed her cast with shaking hands, tears dropping onto the white plaster. "I'm going to make this right," he whispered. "I promise." After that night, Elvis became obsessed with Sarah Mitchell's recovery and well-being. He called the Mitchell family every week to check on her. He sent flowers, toys, cards. When he learned Sarah loved dolls, he sent her dozens of them, expensive collector's items that a child probably shouldn't play with, but that Sarah treasured anyway. Every month, a check arrived at the Mitchell home, not just for medical expenses, which had all been paid, but just because. $500, $1,000, sometimes more. Money the working-class Mitchell family could certainly use, but that felt strange to accept. "You don't have to keep doing this," Tom Mitchell told Elvis during one of his calls. "Sarah's arm is healing fine. The doctors say she'll have full mobility back. There's no permanent damage." "But I hurt her," Elvis said. "I can't undo that. The least I can do is make sure she's taken care of." Elvis's friends and staff noticed his obsession with the incident. He brought it up constantly. Before every concert, he'd say, "I hope I don't fall again. I hope I don't hurt anyone." He'd have nightmares about it, wake up sweating and panicking, convinced he'd killed a child. "Elvis, it was an accident," Joe Esposito said multiple times. "You've got to let it go." "I can't," Elvis said. "Every time I close my eyes, I see her face. I hear her screaming. I did that. I caused that pain." The guilt became part of Elvis's spiral into deeper drug dependency. He'd take pills to forget, to numb himself, to escape the memory of 8-year-old Sarah Mitchell crying with a broken arm that he'd caused. But the pills made him more unsteady, more likely to fall, more dangerous to himself and others, creating a vicious cycle of guilt and self-medication. Sarah recovered, as children do, faster than anyone expected. By spring of 1976, her cast was off. By summer, she was playing normally, her arm fully healed. But Elvis's connection to the Mitchell family continued. He sent birthday presents every year. He called on holidays. He asked about Sarah's school, her friends, her life. The Mitchells were bewildered by Elvis's ongoing involvement. They'd forgiven him immediately, understood it was an accident, wanted to move on. But Elvis couldn't move on. He needed to keep checking in, keep making sure Sarah was okay, keep trying to atone for something that didn't require atonement. Sarah herself had a complicated relationship with what happened. On one hand, she had a story nobody else could tell. Elvis Presley had fallen on her and broken her arm, then spent 2 years sending her presents and calling her family. On the other hand, she could see that Elvis was suffering because of her, that her injury had hurt him as much as it had hurt her, and she didn't know how to make him feel better. In early 1977, now 10 years old and articulate beyond her years, Sarah decided to write Elvis a letter. She worked on it for weeks, getting help from her parents, trying to find the right words. The letter arrived at Graceland in August 1977, less than 2 weeks before Elvis died. Charlie Hodge brought it to Elvis's room, where Elvis was lying in bed, exhausted and sick, barely able to function. "Letter from the Mitchell girl," Charlie said. "Sarah." Elvis sat up, immediately alert. "Is she okay? Is something wrong?" "It's not a problem," Charlie said. "Just read it." The letter was written in a child's careful handwriting, some words misspelled, some sentences awkward, but the message clear. "Dear Elvis, my name is Sarah Mitchell. You fell on me at your concert when I was 8 years old and broke my arm. I want you to know that my arm is all better now. I can do everything normal kids can do. I can throw a ball and climb trees and everything. My mom says you still feel bad about what happened. She says you call every month and send me presents because you're sorry. I want you to know that I forgive you. I forgave you the night it happened. It was an accident. Accidents happen. You didn't mean to hurt me. I was never mad at you. I was just sad that you were sad. Please stop being sad about my arm. Please stop feeling guilty. Please forgive yourself like I forgave you. You're my favorite singer, and I don't want you to hurt anymore because of me. Thank you for all the presents and for caring about me, but you don't have to anymore. I'm okay. I want you to be okay too. Love, Sarah Mitchell." Elvis read the letter 3 times. By the 3rd reading, he was crying so hard he could barely see the words. Charlie Hodge stood awkwardly in the doorway, not knowing what to do. "She forgives me," Elvis said through his tears. "She's 10 years old, and she's trying to make me feel better. What kind of person am I that a child has to comfort me?" Elvis kept Sarah's letter on his nightstand. He read it multiple times over the next few days. The simple, pure forgiveness from a child he'd injured seemed to break something open in him. Not healing, exactly, but a recognition of how far he'd fallen, how twisted his thinking had become. "I can't forgive myself," Elvis told Lisa Marie during one of her visits in those final days. "Sarah can forgive me, her parents can forgive me, but I can't forgive myself for what I did." Lisa Marie, only 9 years old herself, didn't fully understand what her father meant, but she could see his pain, could feel the weight of guilt he carried. When Elvis died on August 16, 1977, just days after reading Sarah's letter, the Mitchell family learned about it on the news like everyone else. They were devastated, not just as fans, but as people who'd known Elvis personally, who'd seen his pain and guilt firsthand. At the funeral, the Mitchells weren't part of the official guest list, but they came anyway, standing outside Graceland with thousands of other mourners. Sarah, now 10 years old, held a sign that read, "Thank you, Elvis. I forgive you." A photographer captured the image. A little girl with a fully healed arm, holding a sign offering forgiveness to a dead man who'd never been able to forgive himself. The photo ran in newspapers across the country. Years later, Lisa Marie talked about her father's obsession with the Sarah Mitchell incident. "Dad could never let things go," Lisa Marie said in a 1995 interview. "He made mistakes, like everyone does, but he couldn't forgive himself for them. That little girl whose arm he broke, he talked about her constantly. Even after she forgave him, even after she told him to stop feeling guilty, he couldn't. I think he carried that guilt to his grave." Sarah Mitchell grew up to become a pediatric nurse, working with injured children. She said in a 2005 interview that her experience with Elvis had shaped her career choice. "I saw how much pain guilt can cause," Sarah said. "Elvis hurt me accidentally, but the guilt hurt him far worse than the broken arm hurt me. I wanted to work with children and help them heal, and also help their parents understand that accidents happen and forgiveness is possible." She kept all the presents Elvis sent her, all the cards, all the letters. She kept the cast he'd signed, even though it had been cut off within weeks of the surgery. And she kept the memory of Elvis Presley, not as a celebrity who fell on her, but as a tortured man who couldn't escape his own guilt. The story of Elvis and Sarah became a lesser-known part of Elvis lore, but among those who knew him well, it was seen as emblematic of his fundamental decency and his fatal inability to forgive himself. He'd hurt a child by accident, and despite the child's forgiveness, despite her parents' forgiveness, despite everyone telling him to let it go, he couldn't. The guilt became another weight in a life already heavy with regret and self-recrimination. Tom and Linda Mitchell, Sarah's parents, both passed away in the 2000s. Before his death in 2008, Tom gave his final interview about the incident. "Elvis was a good man trapped in an impossible situation," Tom said. "He made a mistake, an accident really, and it destroyed him. Our daughter forgave him immediately. We forgave him immediately. But he couldn't accept that forgiveness. I wish he could have. I wish he could have understood that we all make mistakes, that accidents happen, that holding on to guilt serves no purpose. Maybe if he'd been able to forgive himself for the small things, he could have dealt with the bigger things that were killing him." Sarah Mitchell still has the letter she wrote to Elvis in 1977, the one he read days before his death. She's read it to her own children, using it as a teaching moment about forgiveness and compassion and the importance of letting go of guilt. "I was 10 years old when I wrote that letter," Sarah said in a 2017 interview on the 40th anniversary of Elvis's death. "I didn't fully understand what I was saying, but I knew Elvis was hurting because of me, and I wanted him to stop hurting. I wanted him to know that I was okay, that he could let go of his guilt. I don't know if reading my letter helped him or hurt him more. I hope it helped. I hope in his last days he found some peace. But from what I've learned about Elvis over the years, I don't think he did. I think he died still carrying guilt over my arm and 100 other things that he couldn't let go of. The child Elvis accidentally injured forgave him immediately. But Elvis never forgave himself, carrying that guilt along with all his other regrets until his death at 42, proving that sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself, and the compassion given by others means nothing if you can't show compassion to yourself.